Welcome back to the Why LKC Medicine podcast, where we turn the spotlight on LKC Medicine's MBBS program. I'm your host for our second podcast, Anish Srinivasan, a Year 2 student. For our second episode, we'll be learning more about the Year 1 and 2 experience in our MBBS program. As a Year 2 student myself, my learning till now has been centered around learning the science behind our body system. This is done through our distinctive team-based learning pedagogy, hands-on science practicals, communication skills training, and more. I personally have enjoyed my time in the school so far. However, I'm sure you want to dig deeper into what we studied throughout our preclinical years. So our guest today is the one who knows best in the school. Please welcome Dr. Lucy Rosby, the Assistant Dean for Years 1 and 2 of our MBBS program.
Hi, I'm Dr. Lucy Rosby, and it's really nice to be here to do this podcast with you today.
It's great to have you here today. Could you tell us a bit more about your role at LKC Medicine?
Yeah, sure. So, as you already mentioned, my title is Assistant Dean for Years 1 and 2. And basically that means I'm head of Years 1 and 2. So I look after the students, the curriculum, the assessment, everything that encompasses Years 1 and 2. But obviously with the team who helps me, it's not all on me. But it's the way we teach, what we teach, as well as making sure that you students are all doing okay. Some students come and meet with me to discuss various things, to keep an eye on academics, professionalism, well-being. So yeah, it's quite varied.
All right, that's great to hear, Dr. Lucy. So how do you explain to a prospective student the curriculum or teaching approach at LKC Medicine and how it stands apart from other programs?
That's a really great question, actually. So I think you've already mentioned the way that we teach in your introduction around team-based learning, but I think delivering our curriculum this way enables us to explore it deeper, or allows our students to do that. And, underpinning all of this teaching is a whole load of technology that we use at LKC Medicine, and I think this is one of the things that sets us aside from lots of medical schools around the world. So you all have your iPads, right? And they help you with preparing for the TBLs themselves. The TBL in the classroom has lots of technology. And then if we go into the anatomy lab, we have the anatomage table, which is basically a full-size human body that we can dissect on screen, and the students can use as well. They can come to the lab in between times and have a play with that and learn from it. We can even upload things like CT scans on there to show you the radiology relevant to that body system. And we have plastinated specimens as opposed to dissection, which are an amazing way to view the human body as well. And so we utilise technology across the board in all of our various disciplines, but I think we demonstrate it probably the best in our TBL and our anatomy classes. So our curriculum is what we would describe as an integrated curriculum, and it's systems-based, as I'm sure you've experienced yourself. And what this means is that we choose body systems, apart from our very first module, which really focuses on basic science. And we work through, for each body system, the anatomy, the physiology, the genetics, the biochemistry, all of the different strands of basic science and clinical knowledge that add up to that body system all at the same time, rather than doing them separately. And what's so great about this approach for students is that it brings everything together and helps tell the full story of that body system before we move on to the next. And so bringing TBL into the mix allows students to discuss some of the things that they might find difficult along the way. It's a very, as I'm sure you do understand, it's a very dynamic and interactive pedagogy, and hopefully allows for, really interesting discussion.
At least for me, having gone through 2 years of preclinical years, I think doing a system-based learning has been really helpful. I think, like you said, it gives a full understanding of that particular system before moving on to the other one. And personally, I feel that it's been much better as compared to studying anatomy or physio fully and then going on to the different aspects. So maybe moving on to the next question, as we all have experienced, COVID-19 has transformed our lives irrevocably, and we now live in the new normal. So what is the new normal at LKC Medicine in terms of teaching and learning and student life, or even what's the new normal in clinical practice itself?
That's also another great question. There are lots of things, I suppose, covered in that question. So I guess if we start off with the medical school side of things. In terms of the school, last year we had to shift from face-to-face TBL, which is carried out in a large learning studio. I mean, you would have experienced that in year one, I would imagine, with your team. It's all face-to-face, can be very noisy, and we had to shift all of that online because of COVID-19. So, I mean, that was huge. And that has carried on into this academic year and has actually transformed TBL in a way because it's shown us that it can be done in different ways. I do think that it's been really challenging for students to have to adapt to this, because one of the great things about TBL is building up such a strong team dynamic, and I think it's harder to do that online than it is face to face. So I think our students have done really well, yourself included, to adapt to TBL in that context. And I think in terms of our teaching in other areas of the curriculum, thankfully COVID hit at a time which meant that the majority of our teaching was carried out by the time we went into our circuit breaker. So what that meant was that some parts of the curriculum, like our practicals for science practicals, our anatomy practicals, our clinical skills, there was less of that to be covered till the exams. This year, this academic year, we've had to really adapt how we approach these practicals with all the restrictions and things in place. So I'm sure you'll have noticed how different anatomy feels, in the sense that we've got segments in our anatomy lab, whereas normally it would just be a big noisy classroom. And so I think that does shift dynamics slightly, but I don't think it's had a negative impact on learning. From the point of view of student experience, and I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on this as well, I think, like I mentioned, the team side of things takes a bit more time to build up. I think it's probably been harder for students to connect with their larger cohort, because it's on a regular basis when you're in the TBL face-to-face, you're in that room with everybody, same goes for anatomy pracs and so on. That happens less frequently now because you only come in for your practical classes. So that kind of connection to your wider cohort and to the school might feel different to had you had your face-to-face all the time. I don't know whether that's, given that you went through year one, circuit breaker hit, and then you have made that shift, whether you have any insights into how that felt.
So like for me, I felt that shifting from the on-site TBL to something online initially was something that was a bit new to all of us. I definitely missed the chit-chat and all the stuff that we used to talk in class, or the discussions and everything. But then like after a while, I think like all of us adapted really well to it, and I felt that doing my lessons on Zoom is no different as compared to doing online. And sometimes it even helps you save the travel time or having to go down to school.
Yeah.
And sometimes you could even be a bit more focused because you can just listen to the explanations without any distractions. And I certainly feel that the school actually did a fantastic job for us, like transitioning into the online learning. Especially one of the biggest takeaways I would say is the anatomy teachings, because for us, when we first shifted into the online learning, we're actually on the musculoskeletal block, which is very anatomy heavy, and we're all a bit scared on how we are going to understand the limbs and the anatomy behind it. But I think the school came up with a lot of great plastinated specimens and images and practice worksheets, which made it no less different as compared to studying it on site, and I think that really helped.
That's so great to hear that it was a positive experience in amongst the craziness that was that shift for everybody.
It was mad for everyone,
wasn't it? I mean, I still don't think anyone really fully expected us to go into this full circuit breaker and having to change everything so much in such a short space of time. So I'm really glad that overall that wasn't a bad experience for you. And I think you're right in what you say, there are negatives to it. Of course, like you mentioned, the chit chat, that kind of social side. There are lots of positives too that you have brought up. And I think, I think as a school, we've learned a lot from this, and I think it's taught us some valuable lessons about what we can achieve as a collective to make education work, even in the hardest of times, but also that sometimes those changes, there are positives to them that we can perhaps apply and take on board for the future. So I'll be interested to see how, when we move forward and things start to get a bit easier from the point of view of the restrictions that are on us, what sort of things we keep and what kind of things we leave behind. And I think that's something that, we'll be interested to hear from you guys as a student body as well, all of those sorts of experience that you alluded to there.
Yep, hopefully we do take the positives with us and move forward. And I guess since we've been on relatively heavy topics, I guess we could move on to more light-hearted questions. Yeah, it's been pretty heavy, honestly. Yeah. So in your opinion, what qualities does the LKC Medicine student possess?
That's interesting. So in my opinion, our students demonstrate a lot of compassion. I think that would be the first one. I've seen it in all different domains, whether it's from friend to friend, people taking care of each other, to the way that they approach their teachers, the way that they approach their patients. And that's something which, isn't actually easy to teach, but it seems to be inherent in our students across the years and from the very beginning. And I think that is such an important quality of a doctor. So I think that's one thing that I really see very strongly. Another thing is an immense amount of enthusiasm to learn and an immense ability to, as a result of that, ask some very difficult questions to us as content experts sometimes. So keeps us on our toes. I have never left an anatomy session because although obviously I oversee the curriculum, I also teach anatomy. I have never left an anatomy session without learning something from the students who I've been teaching that day. So I think that's also a testament to how bright you all are, but also, how much initiative you take over your learning and what interesting questions and discussions you spark for all of us. So you inspire us as students. So I would say enthusiastic and inspiring, as well as very bright. And I think the other thing that a lot of you have demonstrated is an amazing ability to organise and bring about a whole lot of positivity within the school. So whether it's through student-led community projects, whether it's through student-led events like our Anatomy Challenge and various things like that, the initiative you all take is amazing. So I would say you're also very resourceful and wanting to give back to not only the school but to your wider community. So we're really lucky to have you all.
Wow, that's a lot of praises. Thank you so much. And I'm sure the students possess these qualities because of great teachers like you in the school. And personally, at least for me, I think I would completely agree with the warmness of the LKC Medicine students because I actually had this encounter before even joining the school when I was actually doing a job shadowing experience in NUH hospital. So when I was actually under this consultant, there was also a few LKC Medicine students at that point of time with her.
Oh.
And then I actually didn't even know them, and they were so warm and friendly to me, and even brought me out for lunch and were explaining to me what LKC Medicine was like, and they were super friendly. And actually that was one of the reasons too, the warmness and the kindness of the LKC people that actually made me want to join the school.
That's so amazing to hear. Thank you for sharing that, because it's really nice. Obviously we see students at all various stages of their journey, and for me it's very much my years 1 and 2 students that I see the most, but it's really nice to know that when they sort of go off and you see them in the clinical setting, that they really do display these qualities and that drew you to us. So thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, so I see. So now I'd like to hear more about your thoughts as an LKC Medicine faculty member. So what do you like or love most about the community here?
I think the overall thing that I love most about the community is the caring nature of it, which I guess piggybacks onto what we were just talking about. You notice the warmth and kindness in students when you're on your placement. Pre-medical school, I see that in our students day to day, and I think that filters out beyond just the students. It goes into the faculty, the staff, everyone that works here, and I think that caring, compassionate side of the school, it's there across the board, and I think it's an amazing place to be from that point of view.
So Dr. Rosby, as we're approaching the end of the podcast, maybe I can just ask you a quick question. So for a student keen on coming on board to LKC Medicine, what would you tell him or her to prepare for LKC Medicine?
So I think for someone coming on board here, I would tell them to prepare to have fun within all their different teaching activities, and to look forward to learning in a new way, embracing technology in their learning, which they may not have done in the same way at JC or Poly before they've come, embracing lively teaching sessions, teamwork. And to be honest, I wouldn't say you need to prepare too much. I think we give you a great deal of what you need when you come through the door, and I think you have a great system of students, both within our own house system, which is so great, as well as the peer system that you set up yourselves, that allows you to feel nurtured when you come in and helps you to prepare when you get here. So I think the main thing to do is to just look forward to joining and know that we do our best, both from the faculty, staff and student perspective, to give you what you need when you arrive. So prepare to just have a really great learning experience and to grow here at the beginning of your journey.
So for the prospective students, you know that you just gotta have fun before joining in, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lucy, for being here today. And for all the listeners, thank you for listening to the very end. We hope you've had a good time learning more about our preclinical curriculum, and hopefully you'll join us for the LKC Medicine experience too. Remember to tune in again next week for our next episode as well. See you around.